Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the WorryFree Retirement, with your host, nationally recognized retirement specialist and six-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
It's a subject that is old as the hills and as pertinent as ever. The rush to invest in gold out of fear. I want to take you back in time to an era that shares a striking resemblance to the challenges retirees face today, the California gold rush. Picture it, the mid-1800s, and a wave of eager prospectors descending upon California, all in search of one thing: gold. They were driven by hope, ambition, and a desire for financial security, much like retirees today. Now, why do I bring this up? Because, my friends, uncertainty about our financial future can feel like a journey into uncharted territory. Just as those gold miners face the unknown as they pan for riches, retirees today grapple with the uncertainty of the financial futures that lie ahead. But here's the rub. Just as it wouldn't have been wise for those prospectors to rush into the wilderness without a plan, it's equally unwise for retirees to make investment decisions out of fear, especially when there's a new element at play. The many peddlers playing on those fears to sell us as much gold as possible. It's the new gold rush. Selling scared people gold, which is the topic of today's show. So let's get started. Well, welcome folks to the WorryFree Retirement. And yes, I am your trusted guide on the path to financial prosperity, financial fiduciary, Tony Walker. And today we're diving into a topic that's been dominating our phone lines: the rush to invest in gold, listen, out of fear. But before we rush off into their hills, let me introduce two prospecting gold miners who keep this show going every week. America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Orander, who just happens to be panning for gold this week in Panama City on vacation, and Louisville, Kentucky's most laid-back graphics artist, Mr. Derek Hudson. Okay, now, let me tell you, we've received several calls from concerned clients recently. Basically, they're hearing all sorts of news that's making them want to move everything they own into gold. It's a reaction to the uncertainties that have been swirling around us. But here's the thing. Decisions made out of fear can often lead to regret. You see, one of the pillars of a worry-free retirement is having a well-thought-out written game plan. It's like a roadmap that guides you through the twists and turns of your financial journey, much like the pioneers of the California gold rush or the brave souls on the Oregon Trail. They had a destination in mind and they followed a path, often fraught with challenges and unknowns to get there. Jumping into investments hastily because of fear, well, that's like setting out on a cross-country adventure without a map or a clear destination. And as we'll see today, it's not just gold that is ginning up fear in the hearts and minds of savers. There's a whole host of other financial tools, products, and financial strategies that others use to try to convince you to hand your money over to them. Problem is, you might end up going in circles or, worse yet, getting lost in the wilderness of financial uncertainty. So today, we're going to explore this gold rush and why it's crucial not to let the fear of this driving force behind the gold face your financial decisions. So join me as we navigate the treacherous trails of investment choices and avoid the new gold rush. I'm Tony Walker. I'll be right back. In the financial world, advisors are often divided between two categories: money managers or annuity specialists. My question is, why not have both? At Tony Walker Financial, we specialize in investments and securing guaranteed income you can never outlive. We're more than just annuities. So if you're retired or retiring soon, why don't you give us a call or log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and let's get started. With the uncertainty of the stock market, our nation's debt spiraling out of control, and inflation running rampant, now may be the best time to consider moving your 401k to safer territory. My name is Tony Walker, and for over 38 years I've made it my life's mission to help savers worry less about money, and I want to help you too. To speak with me at no cost or obligation, why don't you log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com or simply call the toll-free number on your screen. Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement. We've just scratched the surface of this shiny topic, the gold rush that's captured the minds of many, especially retirees. But fear not, we're here to shine some light on the situation. Now, let's step back and explore a more recent phenomenon, one that's a fascinating one to talk about and relevant to our discussion. In 2022, investors faced a storm of challenges: inflation, falling stock prices, and the crypto crash. It was a year of uncertainty that had many folks seeking a safe haven for their hard-earned money. Enter the star of our show, that's right, gold. Often considered an old-school investment, gold suddenly found itself again in the spotlight. People from all walks of life, including young investors like Julia Grugan, turned to gold. Julia, a finance major at Temple University, decided to make her first significant investment in gold, bypassing the buzz around NFTs and cryptocurrency. What's the driving force behind this newfound gold rush, you ask? Well, it's the same factor that's been concerning retirees for years, and that is fear. Fear of inflation, fear of geopolitical issues, and fear of the unknown were driving individuals to seek a safe haven for their wealth. But here's the thing. My friends, while gold may shine brightly, not all that glitters is always gold. And just as we shouldn't let fear drive our retirement decisions, we also shouldn't let it guide our investment choices. You see, every investor has their own risk tolerance. Some can navigate the rocky waters of volatile markets without breaking a sweat. They might see gold as part of a diversified portfolio, a piece of the puzzle, if you will. But for others, especially those nearing retirement or are already in retirement, the priority is preserving what they've worked so hard to save. And that's where the cautious approach comes in. Just like you wouldn't dive headfirst into a pool without checking the depth, you shouldn't dive into investments that could potentially drown your retirement dreams. So what's the key takeaway here? It's all about balance. Think of your retirement investments like a seesaw. On one side, you've got your growth investments, like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, that can bring some excitement and opportunity, and yes, growth. But on the other side, you've got to have safe investments, short-term bonds, which can provide stability, and of course, the wonderful secret sauce that we love, annuities. So keep in mind, it's like being on a tightrope. You're a tightrope walker. You need precision, you need control, and a steady hand. And that's where we come in at Tony Walker Financial. We're there to help you find that perfect balance for your unique situation. Remember, it's not about going all in one thing or the other, whether it's gold, tech stocks, or any other investment, including annuities. Rather, it's about crafting a well-rounded strategy that withstands the test of time and helping you achieve your goals in retirement. So folks, as we wrap up this segment, keep in mind that the gold rush might be tempting, but it's essential to evaluate your financial goals, your risk tolerance, and time horizon before making any decisions. And always, you've got to have a written plan. So stay tuned as we look at 3 popular promotions going on to get your money and whether they can really live up to the hype of those promoting them. I'm Tony Walker. You're watching the Worry-Free Retirement. Stick around. I'll be right back.
Tony, I know you recently wrote a best-selling book that's called Live Well, Die Broke. I have to admit, that is not exactly something I would expect to hear from someone who's giving retirement advice.
Well, that catches people off guard because, don't I want to have all kinds of money? The whole purpose of the book was to remind people that you have to spend this money before it's too late. What I've seen over the years is people don't do that, and whether they want to admit it or not, everyone dies broke. What I mean by that is, Diane, you can't take it with you. So it's interesting that people work so hard to save all this money, but nobody's encouraging them to spend it. Now, here's the reason I believe the financial world doesn't want you to spend that money. If you start taking money away that you've saved with the financial world, that's less money for them. That's less commissions, that's less fees, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody makes money on your money if you don't spend it. The moment you start spending and enjoying that money is when you would get to enjoy the fruits of your labor. So if you think about it that way, you've worked hard to spend it, and at some point there'll be a point in time where you can't. A lot of people we have are getting older. They don't spend any money. I mean, we have people spending a couple $1,000 a month, and they come in their 80s and go, Tony, what am I supposed to do with all this money? Well, they couldn't even spend it even if they wanted to. They're not doing traveling and doing a lot of things they did when they're younger. So I think the philosophy is right on. I think it makes complete sense. And when our clients see how that we can make sure they use and enjoy and protect that money, and then show them how they can still use it without running out of money, it's a game changer, and it liberates them to feel like they can enjoy what they've worked so hard to save.
That makes sense. And you're dealing with savers. So that mentality, maybe you're having to mold it a little bit for them.
You're right. A saver, that goes against the grain. They've saved money. They're not good spenders. But we'll make sure they enjoy that money. And again, we'll make sure they spend it without running out of it.
For additional information and scheduling your free, no obligation appointment, go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement. Tony Walker here, and I'm really proud of this book. This book, now my technically 7th book that I've written, is called The Worry-Free Retirement Process. Not to be confused with the Worry-Free Retirement book I wrote nearly 20 years ago. This book takes everything that we do at Tony Walker Financial, all the strategies, all the philosophies. In fact, I think this is probably going to be one of the meatiest books in terms of technical detail that you're going to want to read. It is available on Amazon, or we've got a little offer. If you come in to meet with us or contact us through our fiduciary phone call, we're going to mail you one of these free copies of the Worry-Free Retirement Process. I think you're going to really enjoy it. Okay, speaking of educating people about the world of money, years ago, I was conducting a financial seminar in Southern Indiana when, as was the custom back then, I opened up the floor to questions at the end of the seminar. And that comes with a whole host of topics, and people could ask whatever they wanted to. And I'll never forget an elderly gentleman in the back of the room raising their hands and began spilling the beans, so to speak, about their finances to the group. And he said, I got a lot of money in stocks right now, but I've got way too much money in cash over at the local bank. Surprised, I responded, that's odd for someone to have a lot of money in both stocks and cash. And here's how he responded. Normally, I do not have this much cash, but recently I sold all of my gold. To which I replied, why did you sell all of your gold? I'll never forget the surprised look on this gentleman's face after me asking him this question, where he said, because everyone was buying it. You see, folks, this fella was spot on about money and promotions of what savers, and yes, even investors, should be investing in. And what he reminded this old boy was this. The best time to sell something is when everyone is buying it. Don't believe me? Just look back just a year or two ago and how much one could fetch for a home here in Kentucky, which just a few years ago was about half as much as it's worth today. Why? Why were the prices of homes going up so quickly and so rapidly? Because as the old fellow just reminded us, everyone was desperate to buy a home. Well, why were they desperate? Due to the fact that money was so cheap to borrow. But just because money is cheap doesn't always mean you should pay for more than something that could be worth and down the road could be worth less than you paid for it. I hope this makes sense. So let's get back to this notion that everyone should own gold because it is such a hedge against inflation, which is true, and that the value of gold always goes up over time, which is sort of true. So, first off, if you will take a snapshot of gold prices over time as we see here, in this example, the price of gold, as you can see, is something that is very speculative. This is one reason we don't actually provide gold as an investment at Tony Walker Financial because it falls into the definition of speculative investment. Now let me make a caveat here. I'm not opposed to our saver clients. If they want to go out and buy some gold, that's fine with me. It's just we don't sell it through Tony Walker Financial. Why? Take a look at how volatile this is. I mean, in this example, now this was between January 2013 and January 2019, the price of gold went down tremendously. And again, while I'm not telling you not to buy gold, I must ask the question. If gold is such a precious commodity, and let's say that the dollar bill we hold so dearly in our hand one day is going to be worthless, which many promoters of gold are telling us, then why are those same promoters who have all this gold selling their gold? And therein lies the problem when it comes to us consumers. As this article points out about promoting the merits of gold and why savers who are not investors or speculators need to be aware of what's happening when a mixture of fear and the so-called perfect solution to those fears is just around the corner. Savers must keep in mind when we are being pitched certain products and even strategies based on the fear of losing out in the future, that the promoters are the ones who stand to gain sometimes more at the expense of the saver. But it's not just the promoters who make money off of other people's monies when they find the gold. It's also those who come alongside to sell their wares to those who need them while they're in search of it. In fact, this is kind of interesting. Our own Derek Hudson has pulled some research on this very fact of those who back in the 1800s got rich off of the gold fever without ever grabbing a pan. So let's take a look at some of the most common things that we saw back then. This is really interesting. See if you recognize these names. Philip Armour. Now, Derek's done the research. So Derek, tell us about who Philip Armour was.
Yeah, so Philip Armour operated sluices, which is a method of like separating and recovering gold from gravel using running water. But then he went on to found a meatpacking empire in Chicago.
Well, that was interesting. The next one, John Studebaker. Wait a minute. That's the guy that invented the automobile. I know automobiles weren't around in the mid-1800s. What did this guy do back then?
Yeah, well, before cars, Studebaker made wheelbarrows for the gold rush miners.
I guess I'm just envisioning, people pushing around each other in wheelbarrows. All right, next, Derek's got up. Oh, I recognize these names, Henry Wells and William Fargo. Has anybody heard of Wells Fargo? Who are these fellas and what were they doing back then, Derek?
So Wells and Fargo initially engaged in express delivery services. Spotting the potential, they founded what would become the banking giant Wells Fargo in San Francisco.
That definitely is interesting. All right, wait a minute. Levi Strauss. I think of Levi jeans. Am I on the right track here?
Yeah, that's right. Strauss initially sold canvas tarps for wagons, but pivoted to making durable pants for the miners, which evolved into Levi's jeans.
Okay, so let's take a look at 3 of the most common promotions coming today from the financial world that are based on the fear of the future. Besides gold, here's just a few things that are coming to bear that I hear from time to time from prospects who are concerned about the future. Number 1, this idea that taxes will go up in the future. Number 2, the second thing I see is to beat inflation, well, now you're going to have to invest even more in the stock market. And number 3, annuities. Again, I love annuities, but annuities are the best form of protection for retirement income. So what I thought I would do is let's just go through these one by one and take a look at them. So let's talk about number 1, this idea of tax bracket creep and the taxes going up in the future. Now, where a lot of this stems is in 2025, the current tax laws are set to expire. And while nobody knows what's going to happen in the future, the pitch out there is taxes will go up in 2025. Well, nobody knows that for sure. It could happen, certainly. But what's happening now is people are suggesting Roth conversions. We'll talk about tax-free retirement using life insurance in a minute. All kinds of stuff that are prompting people to make some pretty serious decisions that you can't go back on. So what is tax bracket creep? Well, currently these are the tax laws. The maximum rate is 37%. We have a few people that hit that, but very few people hit that. So the notion is, what if these rates continue to go up, or maybe these income amounts, they lower those, in other words, trying to throw people into higher tax brackets. It could happen, folks, but be very careful on making rash decisions because someone is telling you that taxes will go up in the future. Incidentally, speaking of life insurance, put this up full screen, Aaron. There's a book I read years ago. In fact, I even interviewed this gentleman and studied under him. His name is Nelson Nash. Mr. Nash created a concept called becoming your own banker, which is legitimate, folks. Don't get me wrong. But becoming your own banker uses a concept of whole life insurance, which I've got plenty of that, and how to use that on a tax-free basis. And while it is possible, listen closely, to use whole life insurance on a tax-free basis, there's some huge dangers in doing so. The way you do it is either through loans or doing something called surrendering paid-up additions. But the problem is it's gone one step further than Mr. Nash's book, which to me set out the details very well. Here's the latest book that came out following that. This is a gentleman by the name of Patrick Kelly called Tax-Free Retirement. Many more books have been written on this. Now, these books are stressing that you use something called Index Universal Life, a product that has not been around that long, and again assumes that if you borrow that money back out, you can use it tax-free, which is true. But here is the problem. People are coming to me with illustrations. They're talking about all this tax-free retirement income, and the illustrations are being run at 7, 8, 9% growth rates. Folks, you can't do that. You cannot assume that rate of return because it's not guaranteed. So if you've fallen victim to one of these and you've got a universal life policy illustration, have them run the tax-free retirement illustration based on a growth rate of 2 or 3% to make sure that thing holds up. I bet it won't, so be careful on that one. The next situation is the 3 halves of life. Folks, you've got to understand something. Nobody can control inflation, and to take more risk with your money for inflation, to me, makes no sense whatsoever. As someone who has met with over 15,000 savers and who has lots of clients over the age of 55, 65 years of age, this is what I remind them of. The way most people beat inflation as they get older, yes, the money supply might be going down, which is what you want if you're following the live well, die broke philosophy, is you're going to start spending less as you get older. I had 2 folks in my office just yesterday who both lost their husbands. They've already told me they can see that they're going to be spending less money, less travel, less out to eat. So you fight inflation through old age by spending less money. And then finally, one of my favorite products out there, annuities. This is the problem. Now, folks, while I'm not opposed to bonus annuities and we use them in some cases, these things are being sold like the gold rush of the 1800s. And many of you are buying these products. You have no clue how these products work. The people pitching the products are catching your attention with the bonus, and you have no idea what that bonus really entails. Remember, the insurance companies offering annuities are not giving away free money. That bonus will affect the contract in different ways, and you better be careful before you buy a bonus. In fact, what I would say is order this book that I wrote called Annuities Made Easy. It's going to ferret out all this stuff for you so you can see the pros and cons of annuities. And then before ever purchasing an annuity, please see us for a second opinion. Hope that helps. All right, so what does the Bible have to say about the gold rush? Was gold an important element back then? And just like today, were there people out there trying to get your gold? Well, you bet they were. Let me grab a cup of coffee. You're watching the Worry-Free Retirement. This is going to be a good Bible segment. I'll be right back.
Now remember, when you roll over your money to us from your 401k, you get a free 15% bonus.
Free money? That sounds too good to be true.
No, there's no catch.
So, what are your fees?
No. Not fee, free.
What do you think?
I think we need a second opinion.
Don't leave your retirement to chance. Get a second opinion from TonyWalkerFinancial.com. In 1934, one of the most controversial items signed into law by FDR was something called the Gold Reserve Act of 1934, which basically made it illegal for the government to redeem gold from old Joe Consumer. In other words, the entire monetary system, which up to that time was based on the value of gold and how much one had in their possession, was transferred over to the U.S. Treasury, and well, now today, here we are. No gold standard, and paper money that can be printed at a whim, and thus lowering the value of the current dollars we now possess. And while I wouldn't quite call the act of the 1934 a theft by the government, it does serve as a reminder of just how quickly things of value in our possession can quickly be worthless over time. In fact, Jesus reminded us of this fact some 2,000 years ago when he warned those who would care to listen that by stockpiling gold and silver, that over time, someone was going to try to take it away. Notice one of the most famous verses of Scripture on money found on this whole topic is in Matthew 6:19, where Jesus reminds us not to lay up our gold because when we do so and try to store it, time, which he references to the rust and the moths of the world, as well as thieves, those who are the people who literally try to take our gold, will eventually show up. James 5:2 and 3 confirms this fact that over time, our riches will rot away and even the lowly moths will eventually eat away at our clothing. And yes, in verse 3, our gold and silver, it says, will rust as well. Sounds kind of depressing if you ask me, to slave away at work all of our lives, worrying about where to invest our money and putting our hopes and dreams in possessions that will not last, which is the whole point of the gospel. To remind us that in these things that we possess and hold so dearly, they will not last, period. So, dear friend, here's my advice as to whether to buy gold, speculate on what tax rates will be in the future, whether to rely on various products you think will fit the bill. Do not be concerned with any of them and be consumed with them, because in the end, no matter how much you stockpile, that's right, we all die broke. So, instead of worrying, here's my advice. Be sure that God is who you are totally focused on, and yes, do your best to plan for the future and invest in things you understand, but do not put your hope in them. No, you trust God for your daily provision and what His treasure lies in wait for you. And I assure you, you will do that. You will start to begin to worry less and less about the things of this world. Amen? Well, how about you? Are you putting away too much stress on yourself in this thing called retirement? Do you really have someone in your corner who has taken the time to get to know you and what it is you want to do with this money before it's too late? Someone you can trust that has the wisdom and experience to help you feel more comfortable with the investments you have that have been made for the future. Well, if that's you, we need to talk. My name is Tony Walker, and for nearly 40 years, I've been helping savers worry less about money, and we begin this process with a unique way called the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. And here's how easy it is to take advantage of talking to myself, that's right, the owner of the company. All you do is log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, and you're going to click on that little Let's Get Started button. The information is confidentially sent to our offices, and then we will call you to arrange a free phone call with myself or one of our highly trained fiduciaries. And then, if it warrants, we will be happy to meet with you in person at either our Bowling Green, Louisville, or Lexington, Kentucky offices. Do it now. There's no cost or obligation. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com or simply call the toll-free number on your screen. Well, we hope you've enjoyed today's program, but you remember, between now and next week, if all else fails, you be worry-free and make it a good one.